imagination simply contained in the mind? Or does it tap into an unseen world with messages waiting to be told? There is a place where legends cross over into our world, where strange visions and whispers beckon, and superstition takes hold. Step into the Black Cat's shadow.
Welcome back to the Black Cat's Shadow. Join us as we take a closer look at the cases of the strange and unexplained from all over the world and how they inspire some of our favorite horror movies. My name is Andy, and I'm one of your hosts podcasting from Kansas City, Missouri.
And I'm Dakota, and I'm coming at you from Olathe, Kansas. And today, guys, we are doing a double movie review. We're going to be talking about the two H.P. Lovecraft-inspired movies, Dagon and From the Beyond. And joining us today is the B-Movie Bros.
I'm B-Movie Paul. Thanks for having us, guys.
And I'm Corey. It's awesome to be on here.
Yeah, it's an honor to have you guys on here. You know, we've heard lots about you guys from Phantom Dave, and it's cool to finally have you guys on here.
Definitely.
Yeah, we appreciate you guys coming on. We are pretty much like, we kind of do the same thing, and that's what's awesome about our community is we are all like this. We're like really close in this type of work, I guess you would say. But we share mutual friends, and it all works out. It all works out, and we all kind of share our fans back and forth.
Oh yeah, it's definitely global, kind of low budget review.
Yeah, you guys do some really cool movies. I was listening through your Polonian Brothers series. It's pretty entertaining. I'm gonna have to check some of those out.
Yeah, we're not professionals or anything, so we review B movies to the best of our abilities.
Don't stop it, but randomness is a gift.
Oh yeah,
and that's basically our deal. So
awesome. Well, so we decided last month we had spent a whole episode talking about H.P. Lovecraft, and so that inspired this episode. Where, like Dakota said, we're going to be talking about a couple of movies that were adapted from his works. So we're going to be talking about From Beyond from 1986 and Dagon from 2001. Yeah, so I guess we'll, I don't care which one we do first, guys. We can do From Beyond first. Does that sound good?
Yeah, we'll go chronologically.
It's definitely an interesting two choices, because I think of all the Lovecraft adapted stories, those two definitely showcase kind of Lovecraft's style, his cosmic horror, his fear of the unknown, and the kind of forbidden knowledge sort of style that he's famous for.
Well, there are two of the Lovecraft movies that actually take a lot of liberties with the original work and expound upon it, whereas many of them take a much more literal approach to what's in the works. From Beyond and Dagon, both by director Brian Yuzna, really take a short story, or from The Shadow over Innsmouth, which inspired Dagon, is a longer story, but take it and change it to be something completely different, yet the same at all at once.
Oh yeah, he's been great at that. He did great with that with Reanimator, and just kind of getting like what Lovecraft is trying to do and doing it to the best of his ability, and it's what he's basically well known for now.
Yeah, it's interesting that there's been like this like team of writers and directors that basically have done these H.P. Lovecraft adaptations. Like there hasn't been like a director here or director there. But I mean, most of the well-known H.P. Lovecraft inspired movies are done by like Brian Yuzna and Stuart Gordon. So that's pretty cool to have that team kind of carry through all these different movies.
I tend to think that when a group of like directors and writers kind of get together, they kind of create their own community, and they kind of pass ideas back and forth. And I've seen a lot of that. And like I got to see a little bit from the Beyond. I actually saw Dagon a long time ago, and I actually just rewatched it. I watched Dagon first because it was my favorite, of course, and I almost got done with From the Beyond, but I ended up getting short on time. But yeah, but there's a lot of similarities between the two, just the directing style. So I think it really works well, and that little community that they have where they all pass ideas back and forth really helps with that.
Definitely, I think especially the style of how they have everything, it's very, well, I guess the best word would be Lovecraftian. Name actually became an adjective or something. Kind of cool. Like you did something right when your name actually becomes an adjective.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's definitely a big honor. Like, you have such a distinct style that it labels like a subgenre. That's awesome.
Yeah, and I have to apologize. I got Brian Yuzna and Stuart Gordon mixed up, earlier, because I don't think Brian Yuzna actually is involved with Dagon, just Stuart Gordon with.
Oh, okay.
It's hard because, like you said, it is this small community that makes the most popular and the best of the Lovecraft movies. So, and a couple drinks later, sometimes things get mixed up.
More.
Like I say, alcohol is the lube I use to slide through life.
There you go.
Best quote I've heard in a while.
Well, I think the lube of choice for From Beyond is slime.
Every journey begins in the mind. A flight of imagination. A vision of what might lie across the universe. Or within the deepest regions of the subconscious. Dr. Edward Pretorius is about to embark on such a journey.
It's out of control. You've got to turn it off. Something's coming. Humans are such easy prey.
From the makers of Reanimator, From Beyond.
I was bored silly by the monsters in Aliens, but I laughed and sort of marveled at the creatures in From Beyond, which probably cost about 1/10 as much to make. The story's that old reliable, a mad doctor who wants to push the boundaries of knowledge. In this case, discover a telepathic sixth sense. To do it, he develops a machine that works on the pineal gland. His experiment allows you to see normally invisible objects, as well as experience all manner of sensual pleasure. But naturally, as his young assistant finds out, the doctor's machine is too powerful. Aren't they always?
Turn it off. Edward, shut it off. Never. Can't you feel it? Movement in the mind. The mind. It's out of control. You've got to turn it off. No. I want to see more. More than any man has ever seen. Edward. It's running itself!
Later, another scientist, a pretty young woman, also becomes interested in the mad doctor's machine, and against the assistant's best advice, she rushes to plug it in again.
You realize now what I was creating. The key to a new realm of sensation. Edward, my God, what have you become?
Ah, yes, the price you have to pay for knowledge. From Beyond has a lot of what many people might find to be gross scenes in it. I find them to be sort of gross, too. I mean, sucking out of eyeballs, again, being swallowed by monsters, and then wiggly little worms, those are the enlarged pineal glands, popping through people's skulls. I like the way they just sort of float around like that. And some unnecessary kinky sex. And yet I found the movie to be...
What can be unnecessary about kinky sex in a movie that you've already described with slimy monsters eating people and little worms sticking out of your...
it's just taking it into a new territory.
Oh, we don't want it to go too far, right?
Not too far.
Okay.
Not too far. Actually, this movie is great fun. You can already tell he's laughing at it.
Whatever that stuff was. Yeah, From Beyond was definitely different.
It was a wonderful trip in 1980s special effects, but at the same time, even though it's the cheesy, it's kind of like the same special effects used in Ghost with Patrick Swayze and Demi Moore. except that instead of these black shadow things, which look completely unrealistic and ridiculously stupid in a real life setting, you have the neon colors and everything, which is very, very cosmic and very psychotropic, which really add to the realism of what it is, even though, it's, you can clearly see that it isn't real. At the same time, because of the color choice and the tonage, it really brings the movie to life and this surreal realism to it.
Yeah, and this, considering the topic of the film, this resonator that allowed people to see things beyond their normal sensory abilities, it was real and kind of beyond our plane. Like, it existed like kind of differently from what we would normally see. So I thought it actually worked out really quite well.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting story, and I agree with you guys. About the look of the film, the different colors that they used, and I actually thought it had like a look of an older movie, like from the 60s or 70s. I thought it was an interesting choice of like their set design and things like that, and I'm assuming it was on purpose. I don't, because this had a decent budget. It looks like.
Yeah, this was running off the coattails of Reanimator, which was released just the year before, also starring Jeffrey Combs and Barbara Crampton, which was a very successful. I think it was a lower budget than this, but it was a very successful horror movie. So they upped the budget and they were like, "Give us more Lovecraft," and this is what we got out of it.
Winning formula.
Which unlike Reanimator, this is a lot more of the cosmic horror, the unknown, and again, I think they do a wonderful job. And the characters that they bring to the film are pretty fun as well. When you look at the original story, I believe it was just
5 or 6 pages or something. It's really short.
And do the characters even have names?
There's just Dr. Crawford Tillinghouse and the nameless narrator that just about every H.P. Lovecraft story has.
And then you get these wonderful fleshed out characters, Dr. Pretorius, and
they're fleshed out already.
Barbara Crampton's character, and Ken Foree as Shaft, and they just mix so well together, and they really bring the narrative to life.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I really appreciate this, the practical effects. I really do like the makeups in this. And coming from somebody who like calls himself a makeup artist, very amateur, but it's trippy. I love it.
The practical effects, like of Pretorius, I put those almost on par with John Carpenter's The Thing.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Which has perhaps the best practical effects ever.
Yeah, I agree. That there was a lot in this movie that reminded me of The Thing, as a matter of fact. So I'm glad you brought that up.
Did anyone else really kind of like looking at the pictures of Barbara Crampton?
Yeah,
she's blonde. I can't tell blondes apart. All blondes look the same. Some people say that about like different races and stuff. I can't tell blondes apart. So I'm just like, there's Barbara Crampton being blonde.
Yeah. Yeah. There you go.
Oh yeah, it's a blonde. Is that one Barbara Crampton?
Yeah, that's
like.
Yeah.
I thought it might have been Barbara Streisand there for a minute. They kind of look the same. Oh, does she?
Yeah.
See.
Barbara
Well, I mean, they're both Barbaras. I don't know that many Barbaras either.
Anyway, yeah, this movie had a lot of like sexual tones that were definitely done on purpose. That was pretty obvious. Even like just the eels, which we nicknamed the penis eels because they're even for eels they're very phallic looking. And Barbara Crampton in her S&M outfit and the pineal gland.
Well, the pineal gland, as they say in the movie, it's a stimulation center for sexual desires and things of that nature. So the fact that this resonator, fucks with that, it makes you horny. I mean, Ken Foree even questioned it in the movie.
Oh, the best line in the movie. It's like, Well, what about my heart on? Is there a correlation for that?
What about that scene where he's fighting that giant worm in his underwear?
Yeah, and then of course he's got to get wet, so his underwear is clinging to him, and you can actually see the outline of everything.
Oh man!
And even go so far as to when he stabs the giant worm, which a giant worm in and of itself is a phallic symbol. He stabs the worm, and what comes out is this ooey gooey substance.
Oh.
It doesn't have blood. It's got this gel-like sticky substance that permeates from it. As well as Pretorius, every time he shows up after he turns into the monster the first time. Every time he shows up, he's covered in this glistening, gleaming, clear ooze-like substance.
And when Dr. Tillinghast makes fun of him, starts calling him impotent
and a eunuch.
And a eunuch. And
yeah.
Uses it at that point. It's like
he's like, that's enough playing with Barbara Crampton. He called me a eunuch. It's on now.
Yeah, no, it makes you wonder, like, if you really had, like, if the character really had that issue. I mean, it kind of makes sense, I guess, if you think about it.
I think we talked about this before. Like, I think I talked about it with you guys in your show when you guys had me on when we recorded. We talked about like how sexualism is always being brought into these movies, and I think that's what kind of it's kind of elevated from the 80s up till now. It's like now we have movies where there's a nude scene in every single movie at least, or some sort of sexual provocative or something that's going to like stimulate your sexual desires, your deep darkest sexual desires, obviously. And I think that's what makes some of these movies effective. Specifically, like with this one and Dagon, both of them had some strong sexual themes.
I mean, in the words of great influence of ours, the late great Bill Heinzman, when we met him in person, the way he described certain movies was blood, gore, ass, and tits. Like that's all you need to make a horror movie, and that's what he did when he made Flesh Eater. And he admits that that's all that movie was: blood, gore, ass, and tits. And whereas movies like Dagon and From Beyond intertwine that in their story to make it part of the film, it's more of an undertone, sometimes an overtone in the storyline, but the actual nudity and stuff isn't. A lot of movies they throw that as an overtone to get your attention or to get you to stay with the movie with that promise. And then there's movies like Thanksgiving that promise, boobs in the first second, and then they do it, and then they don't show anything for the rest of the movie. And you're like, God, why did I waste my time?
Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah, I've actually sat through that movie, too.
Yeah. I liked in From Beyond how they actually gave the characters reasons to go back to the Resonator. Like,
yeah.
Not only is it, like, fucking with their minds, but, like, you find out that Barbara Crampton's character like thinks that there might be something useful with like curing schizophrenia, and her dad is apparently schizophrenic, so like that was pretty good motivation and all that. Plus when you find out it's all the weird effects it has on people, it's like, okay, it's not we're just going back to the haunted house because the plot requires it. So I definitely appreciate getting more of an explanation for that.
And then Ken Foree, just tried to be a hero over and over again, and that was just the character. That was the kind of guy that he was in the movie. And it was until the bitter end for him, saving lives. And Crawford kept trying to stop Barbara Crampton from basically being a dumbass. But he just wanted his freedom, and that was why he went back. He couldn't be free until they proved he wasn't crazy.
Yeah, and I like that about it. I think there was some good writing there, because you have these realistic motivations for why these characters do these things, and so that was good. I like that about it. It's not like why are they going back in the house, but they all have very valid reasons for it.
Yeah, and I have a question. Something I kind of thought. When does this movie go from being horror back to science fiction? It kind of flips back and forth in a way.
I think it starts off kind of as science fiction, and then kind of, I think after the second appearance of Dr. Pretorius, it's kind of goes into horror, because when his first appearance and when it's like, wait, you're dead, he goes, no, my body has just gone beyond, I'm something greater. And it's like, I felt like that was still science fiction.
I think...
But after he becomes this big monster and starts attacking Dr. McMichaels, I think then it started really becoming horror, because the science fiction aspects kind of like ceased to really advance after that point.
I think the horror, I can pinpoint the exact moment it turns from science fiction to horror, is with the line, Barbara Crampton says, "What do you want from me?" And Pretorius, his line is, "I want to give you a kiss." And at that moment, he starts his transformation, and that's where it goes from being like purely science fiction to a mix of science fiction and horror, but more to the horror side.
As far as horror goes, a lot of it was like body horror. Like, you think this was directed by David Cronenberg or something like that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I think I was reading a review. I think somebody actually compared it to some of his work, and I was like, maybe it could be.
Was it The Shivers? Which one of his is the one where they have sex and that transfers the parasite that makes them want to have sex and like keep transferring the parasite or something?
Yeah, I think it's Shivers. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it is very reminiscent of that in the fact that through this parasite or through this resonator in this case, they would, it urges people to live out their sexual desires. Where in one case it's because it's enlarging your pineal gland, which is, the sexual core or whatever they say. And the other, it's for the virus or the creatures or whatever to themselves spawn, but they can only reproduce by using a host. They are similar in that manner, that it's like an unwitting play on your sexual desires.
It reminds me of The Fly a lot, like Cronenberg's remake of The Fly, where a lot of it's body horror and basically like what not, like should you go this far with science and things like that.
And the lab kind of looks like a lab that would be in The Fly.
Except there is no good one.
Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
And something I did notice about the movie, it, like you mentioned, like they're talking the science behind all this and the fact that like it makes you live out your wildest sexual desire. That makes me think that this movie hits on a lot of very, very crucial things, and I think it kind of fits into almost 3 or 4 different categories of horror. Obviously psychological, body horror, and then this sci-fi horror stuff that started in the 80s,
Definitely, yeah. It keeps like the whole like spectrum of horror, really.
And don't forget the horror of the unknown.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's funny that, spoiler alert if we haven't spoiled anything already, how they finally, at the beginning, how they defeated Pretorius was with a goddamn fire extinguisher. Of all things, how do you win against, as Pretorius says, he is the most powerful being in the universe, yet he is defeated by a simple fire extinguisher.
Yeah, true. I didn't really even think about that.
Like, what would happen if the Ghostbusters would have shown up to the house? Like, he'd have been in the trap in like 3.5 seconds. Like, it would have been no contest. Slimer is more powerful than Pretorius.
Yeah. Did you guys catch the Star Trek doors in this movie?
I am not. I'm not a big Star Trek person. That would be more my wife. So
I know what you're talking about, but yeah.
Yeah, like at the hospital when the automatic doors would open up, they'd make the same noises. Yeah.
I wasn't sure if it actually was, but I'm like, this reminds me of Star Trek. But
yeah.
I'm the only one.
Oh, okay. It's very very interesting there.
But and also just like this movie, especially with the score, definitely felt like a full moon movie. And this was an Empire Pictures movie, so that probably explains a lot of it. Charles Band, Richard Band did the music for this. So it definitely had that, like the music from like the Puppet Master movies and movies like that. It just kind of has like a certain feel to it, or it's like an orchestral type score. And this definitely had that same type of score to it. So it kind of made me think of like Full Moon Pictures, while I was watching this.
Yeah, I do have one question about From Beyond, and I wonder if anyone else has the same thing. So, or not, yeah, we're talking about From Beyond still.
Yeah.
Tillinghast is sleeping when they go back to the house. He's sleeping in the sex room. Now, he talks about earlier in the movie how Pretorius would have beautiful women over, they would have good wine and good food, and then it would always end with screams, and he would do nothing about it. Now, do you think that's the room he always slept in? And was he in the room when Pretorius was doing these things to the girls and just lying there and watching it? Like it's a question that really bothers me about this movie is, you know, because he says like he did nothing to stop it. So was he? And the fact that that's the room he's sleeping in when they go back to the house, I have to wonder if that was always his room, and that stuff was happening in front of him. Or not.
I'd like to think that that Tillinghast slept in the room that Ken Forey was in, and away from all that.
Well,
for sure.
Well, you know, let's not judge the guy for his preferences and for his fetishes. That's his thing.
People see poor Jeffrey like trying to sleep while his roommates doing all this weird stuff. It's like, damn it, I have an exam tomorrow.
Yeah, and I was curious about who did the special effects on this. It was the I think it was K&B did the special effects, and they it was like Robert Kurtzman. Greg Nicotero and Carl Buechler, I think is the names, but it's like three guys, and they're very like iconic and with like their special effects, I think.
It's funny how many of like the famous 80s horror movies Greg Nicotero's name pops up in.
Oh,
yeah.
And how sad that he is, you know, now only known for The Walking Dead. And there's so much stuff out there that he's done that his name really should be recognized for, and it's not.
I'm sure he's getting a pretty good paycheck, so that's nothing to cry.
And I guess he does get to be on set to hear Andrew Lincoln go, Coral! So that would make it worth it.
Watch Carol cry. 13 times.
I liked how the story wasn't predictable though, because especially like in the third act, you're kind of wondering where this was going to go, because it almost seemed like it was switching up to like setting up a new villain, you know, and things like that. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, when they left the house, and I like would check the time, and I'm like, there's still like 20 minutes left in this movie. Wasn't this supposed to be about the experiment at the house? And then they're back at the hospital, and it's like, okay, so what's going on? At that point, I honestly didn't believe the first time I watched this movie. I didn't believe it was going to lead back to the house.
Yeah,
especially with the annoying neighbor lady that's always calling the cops on, the Pretorius manner.
Every party.
But yeah, how they set up Jeffrey Combs as Tillinghast in the hospital with the brain sucking through the eye stuff, you know.
Oh man, that was gross.
Oh yeah. The one thing about this I got annoyed with was just watching the resonator just turn on by itself after a while. I'm like, oh come on, like
yeah, it
seemed like kind of a cop.
It made absolutely no sense how it was able to. First off, the first thing that makes no sense is the resonator reaches the attic and the basement, but nothing in between, like in the first part. Because they're running through the house to get to the basement to turn it off, and yet there's nothing in the house. There's nothing until they get to the basement. If the resonator reached through the whole house, then there should have been obstacles the whole way. So it doesn't really make sense that it was effective in the basement and in the attic.
Yeah.
Secondly, like Paul said, when the resonator turns itself on after they have shut the power off in the basement and unplugged all 9 cords connecting to the resonator, like I can understand when the resonator's on, like it fusing the cords to itself and stuff so they couldn't be pulled off, but the fact that it was able to turn itself on from beyond made absolutely no sense.
Yeah.
See, I have a theory about the 9 cords. You know, like if I don't know if were there really 9?
There were 9. There were 3 on 3 different sides. She unplugged each one. We watched it like 20 minutes ago.
Okay, so the reason I think that there were 9 cords, the 9 circles of hell.
Okay. Elaborate.
Or they, had a 3/4 set up for the camera to pan around.
Well, I mean, I would figure that if there's somebody like me, I like to look into things like that. So I figured that since this movie is very, very dark and it has a lot of different, it almost seems like it's kind of representing some of the seven deadly sins. Besides, like, gluttony. I mean, maybe being a glutton for pain. I don't know.
Well, gluttony. A glutton is someone who is huge, and when Pretorius is in his demon form, his monster form, especially the second one, his side, his non-human side, is 2 to 3 times bigger than his human side. So that could be the representation of gluttony. In his gluttonous lust for power.
Okay. Oh well, yeah. Well, the lust there, but then also the sexual lust is preferred there. Anger. The whole movie is filled with anger, obviously. I don't think I remember all the seven deadly sins. There's
wrath,
gluttony, wrath, sloth,
pride, greed,
pride,
avarice, and
okay.
Goddamn, I can't remember. It's been so long since I watched the anime, The Seven Deadly Sins. I can't remember what they all are.
Let's see. I remember from Full Metal Alchemist. Gluttony, envy, sloth, pride, greed, wrath. Yes.
There you go.
And I thought how this movie ends with like Jeffrey Combs' character pretty much going
being
insane. What's that?
Oh, we said two completely different things. You said going insane. I said being reborn.
Oh yeah, I'm trying to remember now. Like I watched this last night and I have any trouble remembering.
I made the comparison earlier that this is actually kind of like an allegory for Jesus dying for the sins, because Pretorius dies and is reborn as this being actually meant to kill us all instead of save us all, and then Tillinghast is actually the opposite. When he's devoured at the end, or at least his head is devoured, he comes back to save everyone. So he is reborn as the savior.
Oh yeah.
I just came up with a theory of how the machine turned back on. Maybe from beyond, Pretorius created Wi-Fi, Bluetooth,
or it's the beginning of Skynet.
There you go. Yeah. That's where Wi-Fi comes from.
But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of ways that you can create theories from this movie. Just because, like I said, they've got so many different themes from all the different like subgenres of horror that you can kind of take little bits here and there and kind of create your own theory and almost create your own like little sequel in your mind and kind of see how, okay, maybe that's how it would play out if that was really what was going on.
Definitely, and it's interesting how it's got all these different types of horror elements, but none of them like clash. They all kind of work together in one cohesive story, and I think that's definitely really cool.
And I think that goes to show the power that Brian Yuzna and Stuart Gordon have to take all those elements and combine them, and for it to be coherent, a tangible, wonderful movie of, Lovecraftian greatness.
Oh yeah, I mean this was kind of this is one of those movies that could have just like went off the rails and been a complete mess, but yeah, they pulled it off quite nicely, I think.
Yeah, it unlike Reanimator, the Lovecraft movie made by them right before this, this had a much darker and much more serious tone to it. And I think that added to the effect of this movie, where Reanimator could get away with that dark humor. I don't think that would have worked well in From Beyond. And they recognized that and did not do that to make it a better movie.
Definitely. Kind of like how Barbara Crampton's character and Jeffrey Combs' characters kind of switched roles from Reanimator, where in Reanimator, Herbert West, played by Jeffrey Combs, it's kind of like he'll do whatever he feels he needs to.
In the name of science.
In the name of science, whereas in From Beyond, he's like, no, we can't do that. It's going too far. Whereas Barbara Crampton's character in Reanimator is like, didn't want anything to do with it. But in this one, she's like, we have to turn the machine back on for the third time because, science and whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an interesting contrast there.
Now I just have the scene from Chopping Mall where Barbara Crampton's head gets exploded, like playing over and over in my head.
Oh, is that her?
Yeah.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, she's the one with the head exploding. Chopping Mall is one of my favorite movies. That's my guilty pleasure.
Oh yeah, it's a great one. I mean, killer robots, exploding heads, lasers. You can't go wrong with it.
Oh,
yeah, a bunch of movie references too.
So I feel like something that I kind of miss in this movie. I kind of feel like there were a few opportunities where there could have been some little quips there, here and there, still dark. And I mean, I don't think it would have taken from the seriousness of the movie. Just some like little quips, like little quick things that were like, you know, like some like real dark sexual references, other than what there already was, but more like a sexual joke. I mean, I can't really pull any off the top of my head right now. I was thinking it could have made sense for the movie.
At the same time, yes and no. None of the characters in this movie were really geared or made in that way that they would act in that manner. And that's why that wasn't put in here. Every character is very serious. The only one that does joke around a little bit is Ken Forhey, but he's also the voice of reason in this movie. So they don't, want to do that to him would be what I have to say on that matter. Because those moments where you could throw something like that in is where he's trying to talk sense into Barbara Crampton,
See, would you guys like to see a remake of this movie?
Oh, remakes are so sketchy.
I don't know. One, it would definitely have to have the practical effects that this one had. Like at least have practical effects. I don't want to see everything CGI. Also, I don't like the idea of not having. I feel like the cast was perfect in this film, and I just don't think you can really redo that. Like, I kind of be curious to see who they had for it, but I mean, I have no burning desire to ever see a remake of it. I think it's kind of perfect the way it is.
For me, for remakes, in my opinion, the perfect remake was 1990's Night of the Living Dead.
Oh, yeah.
Where you had the same basic concept, the same setting, and the same characters with very minute changes. The only thing I don't like that they changed about it was the ending of the movie. But I believe that was a great remake of an original. And then we'll use, for example, Assault on Precinct 13. The remake just... The reason why... They changed, almost every detail about it, except there are people trapped in a police... I think in the remake they were actually trapped in a church or some shit at one point. But they changed almost every aspect of the movie except there was a Precinct 13.
Right.
To me, that's... Call it something different or say it's a reimagining and not a remake. And that's, to me, if someone would say they're going to reimagine From Beyond, I would be like, sure, awesome, no problem. If someone says they're going to remake it, and then it's absolutely nothing like the original other than they use a resonator, I'm going to be like, you fucking piece of shit need to stop doing that.
Well, I don't really see what more they could add to it. I mean, it's like you said earlier, it's based off of a 6-page short story, and they expanded it to an hour and a half or something like that. I feel like they already stretched it out. They've done everything there could be for it, and it's not a film I really want to see with updated effects or anything. I just, if they made one, I'm not going to lie, I'd probably see it, but...
Get the George Lucas effects, replace every gun with a walkie-talkie.
There you go. The Ewoks instead of, penis seals.
Oh, man, yeah.
The only way I would want to see it, redone, not, changed a lot of things, keep it the exact same. Keep it the exact same. Just update it with new actors, updated practical effects. No CGI, obviously, because CGI has a way of ruining movies, and also has a way of improving them. So I think very limited CGI if they do it. Just updated actors. Obviously Dr. Pretorius would probably be played by Johnny Depp, but because he plays everybody.
Really make a remake or a reimagining that I would like is. In the original story, it starts out, they're talking, and he says, Dr. Pretorius says, Tillinghast says to the unnamed narrator who's in every Lovecraft story, he says, you see that? That's ultraviolet, a color that you can't normally see. It's if they could expand upon that, what they were seeing I think that could be kind of cool. Like, just make it more of a visual thing than.
Well, it wasn't. It wasn't a. It wasn't like a light thing as much as it was a cross section of universes where they meet, and this was able to break that. The Resonator was able to break that barrier down.
Yeah, it was able to improve your archaic organs that you've had that we evolved to have but no longer work, and he was able to simulate them.
So like maybe in the reimagining, the appendix like bursts out of your side and like starts looking around instead of your pineal gland.
Well, they do mention the pineal gland in the story, so they kept that. They just kind of went a little bit more with that. I think they made like a new one. It'd have to be like this complete like acid trip kind of like weird shit like going.
Either that, or would you have to be like super duper campy, and like Dr. Pretorius would have to be played by Bruce Campbell.
Oh yeah.
Either it has to be like super dark and creepy and like unnamably horror-ified, or it's got to be super campy, over the top, and have Bruce Campbell in it.
Well, I feel like if they're really going to improve upon it, it'd have to be like creating a new world, like where everything is just so different. It's like that whole Lovecraftian, like undescribable kind of way that I thought this movie did a good job with, like showing with the eagles and the jellyfish and stuff like that. Like it's stuff that we know of, it's acting in a weird way, and it would describe something. I think that it would take somebody really creative in making effects and everything to really make a good remake or reimagining it. It would have to be something really unbelievable.
Or perhaps a role reversal on the dimensions, where when you flip the Resonator, instead of all those things being introduced to our universe, you're transported into their universe with along with the Resonator. Like,
there's certain things normal, whereas it normally looks like all weird and everything.
Yeah. There is another thing. Have you guys watched Stranger Things on Netflix?
Oh yeah.
So did you not think when you saw the giant worm in the basement and it opened its face, you're like, hey, it's the Demogorgon?
Oh yeah. Now that you mention it, it did remind me of that. Yeah.
Just adding to the 80s tasticness of Stranger Things.
Oh yeah. It's great. I'm definitely looking forward to season 2.
But yeah, I mean, I really don't have anything else on From Beyond.
Okay.
If they make like a remake, it has to be like the biggest acid trip anyone's ever been on. So I don't know. They really have to impress with that, in my opinion.
Our luck, they'll probably do a remake and they'll cast Dwayne Johnson as Bubba or something like that.
There is no replacing Ken Foree.
Altogether, I think that this movie, it was pretty well executed. They really kind of took like some real liberties with the movie. And obviously there's things that they've changed and things that they've kind of like taken out of it and things have added of their own creation. I think that as a movie, I would probably give it a 7 out of 10 just because I am a fan of practical effects. If for me, if there would have been a little bit more of the I guess a little more like, you know, like the sexual overtones, tone it down just a little bit and throw in a little bit more story, you know? And then I think I probably would have gave it a 10 out of 10.
Okay.
No, I just have to translate that for a moment to myself, because we don't score things like that. Like a 7 out of 10 is a good thing. We score things on our shot scale. That's a reverse scale. 1 to 10, 1 being the best and 10 being the worst. How many shots do you need to get through that movie? So you're saying you'd give it a 3 out of 10 on the shot scale?
Yeah.
Okay. I had to comprehend that in my way, just so because you said a 7 out of 10. And I'm like, wait, but he's saying it's good, so it wasn't making much sense to me.
Math is hard.
I would score it the exact same as Dakota.
Okay.
With the 7 on a regular scale and 3 on our shot scale.
I give it slightly better. I'd give it an 8 out of 10 on regular scale, 2 out of 10 on our shot scale, just because I thought for what they were using for such a short story, I thought they really I really did get the feeling of seeing things from just beyond our scope and everything. And I thought having a guy who had recently been killed, like, as the antagonist, like, enjoying the fact that he's now more powerful, and I thought it really added a lot of depth to it, and really a lot of, like, there's a lot more, like, that we're not seeing. I thought they did a really great job with that, so I did give it an 8 out of 10.
Okay. Yeah, so for me, I thought this was a really fun movie, and while, there might have been some flaws as far as, like, maybe plot holes or, maybe acting. I mean, I didn't really notice a whole lot of the flaws as I was watching it. So, I mean, I'm actually going to give this a 9 out of 10. I love this movie. On the shot scale, it'd be 1 shot. That would just kind of add to the fun. But yeah, I would say, like, yeah, definitely check this out if you have never seen it. If it sounds interesting, if you're a fan of H.P. Lovecraft, check it out. I haven't actually read the short story, I'm not able to judge it based on how close it is to the adaptation, but just as a movie in general, and I think it's, it's an 80s movie, so that probably, makes it, although it didn't really have the 80s feel to it, I don't think. Like I said, it felt like an older horror movie, which was interesting. But yeah, so it's 9 out of 10 for me.
Yeah, I really think if you're a fan of either science fiction movies or horror movies, and you're not put off by there being sexuality thrown into it, that you should give the movie a try. It really it isn't overly horrific. It isn't overly violent or bloody or anything, and it isn't too deep and science-y to off-put either kind of audience.
I'd also say that, like, not reading the short story, like, doesn't really detract from it. As long as you kind of have, like, some knowledge of Lovecraft's style and everything, you can kind of see them as two entities. And I don't think that it would really, I don't think, at least in my experience, it detracts or adds to it. It's just two different things that are both very well done and done, somewhat similar, but very different.
Okay, awesome. So the other movie we're going to talk about is Dagon from 2001.
We are in a boat off the coast of España.
Honey, our stock could be going underwater and we wouldn't even know it.
What are you doing? I'm just going on vacation.
We've got a storm coming up.
Brace yourself! David!
We're gonna have to take the raft into that town for help.
We need help! What kind of church is this?
What the hell's going on here? I'm supposed to meet someone here? A woman? Senorita? You want to tell me what's wrong with everybody in this town?
I tell you a secret. No one leaves. People come, but no one leaves.
I think this is going to be an interesting conversation. I'm curious to see how you guys feel about this movie. I was looking at this one. So as far as like the crew on this one, you have Stuart Gordon directing this one, the same as From Beyond. This was taken from an H.P. Lovecraft story, like we already said. But then the cast was pretty much people that I did not recognize. It was kind of like a cast of unknowns for me.
Because this movie it takes place in Spain, so it was a lot of people of Spanish descent or who were actually Spanish. They wanted to cast, so they didn't rely on anybody from their past castings.
Gotcha.
Yo,
yeah.
that's what I was gonna say. The movie is actually it was meant to be a Spanish movie. The entire movie was actually meant to be filmed in Spanish, but they were like, well, let's go ahead and film most of it. Let's film it in English and have it played out, and then have those little moments where the language, like, because I think they speak their own language in that movie, right?
Yeah, it's a very localized dialect of Spanish because any chance we get, which is not very often, we watch our movies with subtitles on. And whenever it's them talking, it just says, like, unknown dialect or some shit. And I'm like, ah! And I'm like, he said door, puerta, door. I understand that one.
I watched it today, and it did have subtitles or captions on. And it was actually, like, saying the Spanish. It looked like Spanish that they were saying. It actually showed it when I was watching it today.
I think it's just our copy of it.
It's probably like a regional dialect, or regional dialect, like what you said. Because it was like a form of Spanish, but it was not one
traditional Spanish.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, see, something that's interesting is they changed the island from the story. The story, because it was like A Shadow over Innsmouth is the name of the story that it was adapted from, and the Innsmouth is the actual island from the story, and they changed it to starts with a B. What was it in the movie? It starts with a B.
In Boca.
Oh yeah, in Boca. Okay, so I'm thinking what's going on in the movie. I think they're using that Spanish dialect as well, kind of because it kind of sounds alien in a way. But in the story, they actually do speak their own little language. That's kind of why I was trying to find out if that's actually what they were doing or if it was a Spanish dialect. So now that we know that, it kind of really adds to the effect of the movie. And I'm trying to get at a point here that some movies like when a movie like Assassin's Creed, that just came out here recently. The movie was mainly done in Spanish, and then the little parts where they're in the present, they're in English. If you don't have subtitles, you don't understand what's going on. And a lot of movies will not throw in subtitles unless you like find a way to get them. Like, because I have it on my tablet. I ended up buying it on Google Play, and that comes with subtitles automatically. But when you're watching that movie, you kind of understand, like, when they're talking in that dialect, you can understand like what they're trying to get at. Just like how they're physically saying things, or like their physical presence kind of gives off like, hey, this is what we're doing. This is what we're saying.
Makes sense. It's kind of like watching The Godfather, whenever they're talking in Italian, you know, that there's like real serious business going on.
Now, the Shadow over Innsmouth takes place in Innsmouth, but what about the story Dagon?
The story Dagon takes place in, I know it's kind of somewhere in the middle of the ocean.
Okay.
The actual story Dagon is about a guy lost at sea after during World War I, and he starts seeing these things, black like ooze, coming out from the sea, and he's able to walk on it, and there's these statues to these giant sea creatures, and then he sees one, and it's another one of Lovecraft's nameless narrator stories.
Because this is a movie that it's actually based on two stories: The Shadows over Innsmouth and Dagon.
I actually believe that this was also partly inspired by the H.P. Lovecraft story, The Festival. In that one, the character also goes to a seafaring town, really old, and all the people there, he notices instantly are like in a trance, and he's invited to this like Yuletide like ritual, and the whole time reading it, obviously it's more based off Shadow over Innsmouth, but I definitely got the vibe of that from that, the old style, the way the roads are and things like that.
Now, Dagon the movie is a super dark movie, both in tone and in visuals. Although it does have the main character, what's his face? Paul, yeah. There's only one Paul to me. It has Paul like making little quips at times, basically like using that as a coping mechanism, though. Like, he's not doing it to be funny; he's doing it because that's his way of dealing with the situation at hand. I'm not a big fan of the movie Dagon. I think it's okay. I have a lot of issues with it.
See, I'm on the opposite. I love the movie. I think it's fantastic. I think it's I love I thought the characters I thought all the characters were pretty great, especially Paul, who he reminds you of kind of Ash Williams, whereas Ash is kind of in the first Evil Dead, this nerdy guy, kind of quiet and everything, but slowly becomes a badass. He's like that, except he never really becomes a badass. He tries to, but it doesn't work out for him. He's like, I'm not in the story I thought I was in, and like I thought it progressed pretty well, and I had a lot of fun watching it.
You know, I feel like Paul should have got his face cut off, and the bum should have been the one to like kill everybody at the end. Like,
yeah,
Plot twist.
that might have made it a little bit better. Yeah.
You know, I don't know, and it's been a while since I've watched that one, but my biggest issue with Dagon is when they're doing the rituals and stuff, they're all chanting Ia Cthulhu Fatagan. Okay. This is supposed to be the esoteric order of Dagon. Why are we worshiping Cthulhu? Why are we talking about Cthulhu, you know, in the ancient city Cthulhu sleeps, when we're supposed to be summoning Dagon? Shouldn't we be talking about Dagon, saying something about Dagon?
I have a rebuttal to that. In the actual original story of Dagon, Dagon is actually only called Dagon because when trying to compare him to something, Dagon is actually an old, I think, Assyrian god of rain and fish. So that one came out before the Call of Cthulhu. So there is some theory that Dagon in the original story actually is Cthulhu because you'll actually get to see all of it. So there.
Okay.
Because it's actually based off an old, I believe, Assyrian god or something like that. That was the closest like human thing they'd come out with. Whereas Cthulhu is the actual pronunciation is supposed to be beyond our pronunciation, so it makes sense that a town that didn't know it would call it something that's more human origin.
This fits in directly to the Cthulhu mythos anyways. It's actually the closest thing that you can get to it other than the Call of Cthulhu. Well, the theory that I had kind of formed was that Dagon may have been a lower life form that Cthulhu worked through to accomplish his agenda, obviously. And that is to populate the world with his own kind to eventually take it over. And because Cthulhu is working from his realm, from like I'm trying to remember, because he's considered one of the. What was that?
His realm, his city is Relay.
Okay, so yeah, he's using Dagon as a means of kind of melding the realms.
Makes sense, yeah.
Yeah, it's I mean there are the ancient ones who are the old gods, that would be like Dagon and Astaroth and the other ones.
The great ones they're from another planet.
And then Cthulhu is the master of the ancient ones, the old ones, the gods.
Yeah, and then the deep ones, which are the sea creatures, they're kind of a lower life form. They're more, I guess, more believable. They're more describable, but they're not like god creatures the way the old ones are. So.
They're kind of like the angels of the ancient ones. Like when you look at it, like or demons, if you want to see the ancient ones as like devils or, you know, either or. They're the foot soldiers of the Cthulhu mythos.
Well, you would having a like satanic ritual, and then like you just summoned like, you know, Bob, the janitor from hell or something like that. It's like, oh, I'm Satan. I'm like, well, you know, all the rituals have Hail Satan and everything, but you know, your sacrifice wasn't good enough, so you got me. You know.
Yeah.
Like I just thought that
I'd like
kind of like that. Like,
I'd shame him from running away from Batman in the Michael Keaton's Batman from 1989. You know, Bob, you were supposed to be the best minion, Bob, but you ran away, and now you're the janitor in hell. That's what you get. You ran away from Batman. Now you're a janitor.
And so I was kind of thinking, now that you said the deep ones, and Dagon is supposedly a god of. I think it even says in the story that Dagon is a god of I think wealth and fish or something like that. So it makes sense that he'd be a deep one then.
Yeah, he's the commander of the deep ones.
Yeah.
So I really actually enjoyed the movie just because I liked the darkness in it, and I really liked how it kind of threw that twist in at the end. I'm a sucker for twist endings, but it kind of like really shook me a little bit when I first saw it. I was like, I think I was 13 years old when I first watched it, and I was like, wait, what? I started gagging a little bit when I figured out the truth.
You think he's gonna save it? I love how you think he's gonna save his girlfriend, and then like he kind of like reels her up from the sacrifice. She's like, just kill me, and then Dagon just grabs her, rips her down, like you see her arms dangling. It's like, well, that was unexpected. Like,
oh yeah,
like he was like this wannabe. He like tried being a hero, you know. He's like
also his technique for fighting the cultists was not
lighting them on fire.
He was splashing gasoline everywhere and then just lit them on fire. Like that does not seem very effective to me. Like, couldn't you have you may have caught yourself on fire. He did catch himself on fire.
Well, he did that on purpose, and I'm actually going to back him up on that one.
Well, yeah, he did. I understand he did it on purpose so that he wouldn't have to fuck his sister for all of eternity.
Hey, spoiler alert! Spoiler alert!
That he's actually some freaky guy who is immortal and doomed to fuck his sister for eternity. So yeah, I'd light myself on fire too. I completely sympathize with his decision.
I mean, I'm glad I don't have sisters, so I'll never have to light myself on fire to avoid fucking them for all of eternity. Paul, on the other, might have that problem.
As far as I know, I'm not a freaky guy, so.
Well, to be honest though, she was hot, and I mean, he didn't know until the very end. I mean, I'm sure if he had the chance, he would have fucked the squid lady.
Okay, well, I want to go through a brief synopsis in case anybody doesn't really know what this movie's about. Just because I think so far people might be a little confused, but so basically, you got these two couples on a yacht, and there's like a younger couple and there's an older couple, but the younger couple, they've just kind of recently come into some money through some stocks or something. And, so it's Paul and, I can't remember his girlfriend's name, but, she was the one that was sacrificed at the end. But, yeah, and spoilers are fine because this movie's like 16 years old. I'm not too worried about it. So yeah, so they're on this yacht just trying to take a vacation after they had this big windfall. And I think the older couple were investors in their project or whatever they were doing. So they're anchored off the coast of Spain, and all of a sudden the storm comes out of nowhere, which is pretty shoddy. I don't know if it's CG or what, but the storm was like just fake as hell. But anyway, the storm comes along and sends their boat to crash on these rocks, and so they're stuck on these rocks, and actually the older lady is down below and her leg is pinned between the rock and the boat. So they need to get their cell phones don't work. The girlfriend threw the laptop overboard for whatever because she was tired of Paul being on the laptop all the time. So that was basically their only means of communication. So they have no way to get help except for to go to the shore and try to get help from this village that they see there. And so I guess they had this little lifeboat on the yacht, and so the younger couple, they decide that they're the ones that are going to go. And so they are going. So they go ashore. They can't really find anybody. They're having a lot of trouble finding. They finally run into the priest, and so it kind of goes on from there. And the more that they see of this village, just the weirder it is, and the more that they realize. I mean, you kind of realize right off the bat that there's something really wrong with this village, but I think it takes them a little bit longer to realize it than it does us as the viewer. But yeah, you find out that this village is, it shows you their church, and the church, the crosses have been replaced with these weird symbols, and so yeah, it's basically this village, they worship this sea monster type thing, and it's like this god. Yeah. So anyway, so that's basically the story, and Paul and his girlfriend are trying to get away from these villagers. They're trying to rescue their friends, but anyway. So,
well, you missed the most important part is that when Paul and his girlfriend get to the shore, they split up to take care of things. That's have they never seen an episode of Scooby-Doo? You never split up.
Yeah, you never split up.
I'm that way.
But I did like that opening scene though, where it showed just that big hole in the ocean floor. That was kind of cool looking. And actually that little jump scare there did actually make me jump. When he sees the girl and then her mouth opens up and it's all the teeth.
Oh yeah, his dream.
Yeah, in his dream at the very beginning.
Yeah, how would you like to find that out, that the girl of your dreams is actually your sister? Like,
oh man. And I don't know if you guys noticed this or not, but I really felt like the cinematography was really tight and real shaky, and that kind of got to me. I don't know about you guys.
I noticed it a little bit, but I just personally really like the dark environment of it. I thought that was really well.
Yeah, I think the darkness adds well to the story and the emotion that you're supposed to feel and see within the movie.
It's cool. I've been to I went to Fayal in Portugal a while back, and the way the roads look, the way parts of the town are, there's a lot of it's a really old city and everything. It actually really does resemble a lot of the way that town looks. Really well done.
Yeah, the set designs were really good. I think I think this movie kind of suffers with the lack of budget, or the limits of their budget. But I think the set designs were really good with what they had to work with. And I think some of the makeup, some of the villagers looked cool, and some of them didn't look good at all. I mean, some of them you could tell they had fake eyes or something. It was kind of weird.
Well, I think those ones were the ones that were supposed to. It was supposed to look like they were wearing the skins of the people that they had cut off.
Yeah,
because
we're human skin.
Yeah, and that's what a lot of them. And I mean, that was also a cheap way to get away without doing a lot of makeup and special effects, was to make those skin-looking garbs to put over them that looked like cheap masks, because in essence, that's what they are. They're a mask of a person.
Which is actually another thing that came from the story, the festival, because I believe they wore human faces in that one.
Yeah, they didn't really explain the whole mask wearing thing, why they did it. So that was kind of weird to me.
I kind of drew my own conclusion there. I kind of feel like with the theory that I'm developing, that it's because Dagon is trying to amass a force to invade other lands. So he's having them take the humans, whatever humans they can get. But I think the mask thing was part of the ritual. Because remember they were wearing the masks too during the ritual, right? When they were trying to when they were going to sacrifice what's her name to Dagon.
Yeah,
I honestly think it's a lot more simplistic than that. That because these half monster, half people things were once people, they're trying to keep that essence about them and trying to cling on to that facet of life of being human, because they aren't ready to go into the sea. So they identify more as human than as sea creature. And because they're clinging to that, they use the human skins and the human flesh to kind of relive or, cling to the fact that they still have their humanity.
See, I have a different theory for that one. It wasn't uncommon for ancient tribes to wear animal skins and things like that. So since this thing is supposed to be this great god of the sea, and one of Lovecraft's cosmic horror, not the most significant creatures in the universe, were kind of compared to old ones and the great ones, so far below them. Having a human sacrifice in the manner of old animal sacrifices makes them.
See, I did want to mention something. Andy, you were talking about how the cinematography was kind of shaky, and it was kind of off. It was kind of off-putting for you. For me, that kind of added to the effect, because the movie was meant to be following this man trying to save his friends, get off this island. And I something else I was going to mention about From Beyond, how they kind of center around one central hero in a way, but there's still a team of people that need to be saved. Obviously, well, if the camera's following him through his journey out to rescue people, I would kind of figure that if they wanted to add effect, that they would leave the shakiness, leave it kind of shaky, leave it kind of almost like a found footage, but not a found footage, obviously.
I definitely think that worked with the scenes where he's in the hotel and he sees a horde of people outside that all want to kill him and everything, and he's trying to figure out, how do I lock the door? How do I what's the best way of getting out of there? He's just improvising it. It just seemed all right, if I was in that situation trying to improvise, it just kind of just made it seem more relatable in a weird way.
Now, at the same time, that brings up another thing that kind of annoyed me about this movie was this movie has a very dark and serious overtone, but there are times in this movie where things just seem like too ridiculous and over the top, in my opinion. And one of the things is in the hotel when he's replacing the lock for the door from one door from his bath. I think he uses his bathroom door lock to lock the door. And he's using his like multi-tool, and it's really, it brings up that cliche to me of every time somebody goes to get in their car in a horror movie, they drop their keys, and it just seemed like the same tonnage of that, but it didn't seem like it was. It seemed like it was done in a way that was silly as opposed to a way that could be taken serious.
But I think that went with his character, because his character was like, all right, I'm this nobody, I'm going to try to escape, I'm going to be a hero, I'm going to save my girlfriend, all this. And then, spoiler, at the end, he saves no one. He fails. He doesn't even save himself. No. He's just like, wow, this sucks. Like, it's a lot harder to be, like, the big bad hero than I thought. And that was consistently what I thought of his character. It's like trying to, like, not so much be a hero, but trying to, like, get out alive and trying to get everyone out of there. And he doesn't know what he's doing. He doesn't, like, know what to do. He's completely improvising it. The improvisation just came off as authentic. Like, all right, there's a bunch of people. What am I going to do? I'm going to throw gasoline on them and throw them on fire. Like, I mean, I'm surrounded by these people. What else can I do? Like, you got this sense that he's, like, really just out of options.
I think the only improvisation that seemed to, like, actually work out was when he killed the one creature with the lid of the toilet, with the lid of the toilet tank, which again is something that kind of seemed humorous.
Yeah.
Because it's like, oh, he's using the toilet, haha.
See, I don't feel like this movie was completely like as serious toned as you make it out to be. I think it was kind of meant to be like a little camp. That was a.
I think that's part of my problem is I'm used to, and again with Stuart Gordon, with Reanimator and From Beyond, the humor that's thrown in there, to me, seems to fit. But in this movie, like, the little bit of humor that's there, I don't know, it seems tonally different than the rest of the movie. It seems out of place.
Yeah, I kind of feel like the humor might have been misplaced. And there were times like you were saying, he was improvising most of the time, and he wanted to be a hero. He wanted to save his life. He wanted to save everyone else's life. But this is kind of like the exact opposite of what you're saying with his multi-tool. I mean, the kind of character that was meant to be played was a character that, like you said, was a nobody. So the chances of him actually carrying a multi-tool with him are very low. So I kind of feel like this is just it was kind of like a plot convenience type thing.
It's kind of like in the newer version of Doctor Who, where, every time he has to figure something out, instead of there actually being a plot reason for him getting around it, he just kind of goes, oh, the sonic screwdriver. And then, like, they figured out they were using that too much, so then, like, the next season, everything was deadlocked. It was like, oh, no, it's a deadlock seal. I can't use the sonic screwdriver. And that became, like, the same thing. It was just the same plot device used over and over. And it was just, it was a convenience factor for the plot, but at the same time, it is the reason that I started carrying a multi-tool with me after I saw this movie. It came out in 2001, so I probably saw it in 2003 or 2004.
I think it would have been better if it was like just like cheap Swiss Army knife or something like that.
And it like broke at some point.
Like ordering things on Amazon.
I don't know, the main guy, Paul, he was a little annoying, or maybe not annoying, but it just seemed like, I don't know if it was the writing or what, but the dialogue wasn't that great, I didn't think. And I really got tired of his whole, like, two possibility shtick.
I fucking hate that. It annoys the shit out of me. And it's funny because in the trainings that I did for work this year, it was all about giving two choices. And every time we talked about it in my trainings, I was like, there's two possibilities, this or this. I'm like, God damn it, dang it.
I think my favorite part of Paul's character is the one guy who this guy, and he's like, he's got the police through him, and you can tell he's trying to come up with a cool one-liner. This is what it feels like to die, and it's like not a good line. It's so fitting of his character.
That was the other thing. Like, I didn't find it believable at all that he could escape from that situation.
I mean, he really didn't. Like, I mean, it wasn't due to his own efforts.
Yeah, I
mean,
guess.
That was the thing. Like, realistically, like, he really didn't get out of most of those. Like, the end being in a plot twist at the end. He himself, he would have been screwed with some normal path.
Yeah, but somehow the town drunk survived years, and it's Paul's fault that he's dead. Can't forget that one. Nobody mentioned that. It's Paul's fault that everybody's dead.
Yeah, wasn't that convenient that guy was there to give him a nice, clean narrative of what's going on in the village?
And also, he's like the only person that speaks like fluent English. Like, nobody else speaks fluent English except maybe the priest, kind of, sort of, like, knows how to speak to lure people into their doom, but like that's it. Like he had English villain 101 in high school or something. Like,
I in all those horror films was like, you're doomed.
Oh yeah, Crazy Ralph.
Exactly. He was Dagon's version of that guy.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, one thing for this movie, I thought there was a good level of suspense to it that kind of carried throughout the whole movie. I think it dragged on at times. Like, I'm not sure if I'm remembering it correctly, but I feel like there were long periods of nothing happening, and then like there would be like 2 or 3 minutes where there was a lot of stuff going on, and then it would like slow down for 10, 15, 20 minutes, and then we would have another like round of a lot of excitement for a minute or two, and then again we would go into this lull. For a while. A lot
of small things happening, like him just kind of like, alright, well, what do I do to grab this? It reminded me of like playing like Resident Evil or something. It's like, alright, well, if I go in this room with this, I'll grab this thing, and maybe I'll come out of here and like kill a couple zombies or something like that.
Oh, look, there's a crowbar and a toothpick.
Oh, thank God I found the typewriter and saved it.
Oh, you can pick up the toothpick. You can't pick up the crowbar. What sense does that make? Let me use the crowbar. Oh, I'm sorry. This thin piece of caution tape is preventing you from crossing this. You have to travel 12 hours and 700 miles out of your way just to get to the other side of the hall.
Oh, yeah. Those were the good old days.
To flush this toilet, you need to crawl through this hole, fight a giant spider with a shoe, get the plunger. If you don't plunge the toilet, you plunge the ceiling to get the key to fall, which opens the door to the next room where the toilet flusher bob is. Then you install it, and then you have to go on a quest to find the actual handle.
Yeah, that's great.
Fight the next boss.
Yeah, well, I was a little disappointed that most of the deaths in this movie were off screen, except for the girlfriend's death at the very end.
You could tell that most of their focus, as far as the special effects, was on the skinning scene, which was an amazing scene.
Yeah.
I loved. Well, I didn't love it. I would have loved it if Paul got skinned, but the old man got skinned. But it was an amazing production of it. And I must say, I did like the makeup of the townspeople. And the mixture of, you had some that had legs, arms, faces, like different body parts. It wasn't just all the same thing over and over that you were saying. It was different parts, different things.
I thought there was good variation like that.
Which, at the same time, whenever you had his sister chick, where her tentacles were CGI, but like everybody else in the movie had been practical effects, it was really something I was like, man... Like, it was disappointing with that reveal. Like, I could understand them making Dagon, a CGI thing when he, like, ripped the girlfriend down into the well of bottomless pit. But, that was just, it was very disappointing for the other character to have CGI tentacle legs when everybody else had practical
a lot of the CGI effects I definitely didn't like. I thought they could have... I thought practical effects would work a lot better.
At the end of the movie, what did you think? What did you think about the of Paul's burnt skin, his makeup when he was in the water?
I thought it was pretty decently done. I mean, I didn't really think too much of it. I didn't think it was that badly done.
Yeah, I think I was more thinking, ew, he's spending eternity with his sister than actually paying attention to his burnt skin. But I mean, underwater makeup is a very difficult thing.
Yeah, and I mean, it looked really, really good. Burnt skin, I think his face was better than his like body piece, where his gills were. You know.
Yeah, it was. You gotta tell, like, it seemed a little inconsistent, but I thought overall, like, it wasn't too noticeably like bad or anything like that. I thought they did a pretty decent job with it.
Yeah, I mean, everything for me about the makeups were great, obviously except for the tentacles. But it's seeing from experience, it's hard getting long tendril-like things with practical makeup. It's hard. You're gonna have to make it something really fluid. I mean, you're gonna have to use like really flexible tubing, and that even then it's hard to manipulate, especially if she's moving with them.
Yeah, I can definitely see how it would have been difficult to do like some of the effects they had with it with practical effects. It just seems out of place like compared to everything else. So it was very noticeable, I think.
Yeah,
I mean, I'd have to forgive them for that. So.
I actually thought the sound design wasn't bad. I thought the villagers, there was like some growls, some growling or making like weird noises. I thought that was done pretty well.
I do like, despite my reservations and saying about the campiness and things of him switching the lock, I do love the siege scene in the hotel. And for anybody out there who's a gamer too, if you've ever played the Call of Cthulhu Dark Corners of the Earth, you actually can live through that scene in that video game. Where you actually travel to a town that is, inhabited by the Deep Ones, and it's an awesome game.
That was definitely a great scene. It's like him trying to see the whole town's out to get him.
Oh yeah, it was intense. Yeah.
Did you know they're actually making another Call of Cthulhu game?
Are they?
Yeah, I think it's set to come out next year.
Sweet. I know they did re-release Dark Corners of the Earth for the PC. I think it's available on Steam. I have the original copy for the Xbox.
Yeah, I mean, I saw it at Vintage Stock. I don't know if you guys have Vintage Stock around where you guys are, but but I saw it actually at Vintage Stock, and it was pretty cool.
Nice.
I don't know. I think Paul. I was kind of getting a little frustrated with Paul because I was wanting to just like run out of town or whatever, just get as far away as he could be. Kept going into different houses. I'm like, why?
Well, I mean, seriously, look at his girlfriend.
Well,
look at him.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking the whole time.
Okay.
He's not going to do any better than that. Like, he is his one shot. Like,
then again, he's apparently rich, so he probably could do like whoever or whatever he wanted.
Yeah, but he wanted the car. That was the explanation.
The only car in town, which actually so happened to be his, kind of, sort of, actually his, because it was his family's car.
Oh,
Plot twist.
Now, do you think he like the average person would really know how to hotwire a car like that?
Well, he was some kind of engineering whiz. That was how he made his money. I don't know. He lost his glasses at one point, I think, and it actually didn't make any difference to what he did. So it was like, why was that even important that he had glasses?
Well, it's like as he's kind of changing into a fish person as the film's going on.
It's just like suddenly, oh, I'm in the water. Hey, I have gills now. Whoa, cool. They're conveniently in line with my ribs.
That's what I mean. Like, there's this campiness about it that I.
Yeah, like at the very beginning, if you pay attention, like when there's the scene at the very beginning when he's making out with his girlfriend, and he doesn't have a shirt on. You can see those marks on his ribs, and it made me like suspicious, like what is that, And so of course later on you find out, but it was
I have some marks like that around my midsection. They're called stretch marks.
You're a fish person. You're one of Dagon's children.
I just assumed that at one point Paul had gained a lot of weight and then lost it again. He was kind of like Jared from Subway, like just walked to Subway, got a veggie sandwich like 3 times a day.
That's without the pedophilia, though, right?
Well, I mean, I think that would go without saying.
You know, I thought it was funny though. Even though like, I did end up rooting for Paul like at the end there, you know, and so I think that's a good thing when you do end up rooting for the character. I think, you know, the writing is capable enough to where it makes you feel kind of like invested in the character to some degree.
I was opposite. I was rooting for the fish people to kill Paul just to get the movie over with. Like after he met the sister, well, he didn't know at the time the sister, in the mansion, and you know, Dad came in. I'm like, please tell him he's in the closet. Like, let's just get this done with at this point.
It's just like time to see a hero who's like the opposite of like John McClane, where it's like whereas like he would like learn badass. He was like not the same like capabilities at the beginning, and at the end when he's trying to fight them, he's just throwing gasoline at them and like one on like as many as he can on fire. I'm like, this is great. He has no real plan. He's just kind of winging it. You know?
Let's face the fact, you keep defending him because his name is Paul.
You know, towards the end of the movie, before I found out that the tentacly lady was his sister, I was really, really hoping for a hentai type scene. You know,
which actually brings up.
I'm surprised it didn't happen. I'll be perfectly honest.
Which actually brings up something that
anime.
When we had a comic con here several months ago, and we helped out our friend Dave Can, who co-authored a comic book series called Lovecraft Shot in the Dark, which is an alternate universe Lovecraft, not HP. I forget what their Lovecraft's name is, but instead of him,
Lovecraft PI.
Yeah, Lovecraft PI. But instead of him being like the meek writer, he's this badass detective, and he actually is like fighting the monsters that H.P. Lovecraft created in our universe, which somehow appear in his universe. But anyway, when we were at this Comic Con, some kid came up and was like looking at the comics, and he's like, "Oh, what is this?" And you know, Dave and I started talking about, you know, oh, it's, you know, based on H.P. Lovecraft works. Well, who's H.P. Lovecraft? We were telling him. He's like, "Oh, I only watch anime." And Dave goes, "Did you know H.P. Lovecraft inspired all of anime? That's where tentacles came from." I had to turn around, like, to not burst out laughing because, just like, you know, so you see like some kind of hentai type scene, you know, just remember, Lovecraft is the reason for hentai and tentacle porn and all that goodness.
Well, so like, you know, as far as Dagon goes, I thought it was an interesting idea. But I felt like it was poorly executed. So anyway, I guess we can, if you guys want, we can move on to like our final thoughts or whatever about Dagon.
I think it's a very midline movie. I mean, there was nothing like totally, there were a bit of memorable things, but nothing to make it stand out among other like creepy town type horror movies.
Yeah, I'm on the opposite of that. I thought this one actually did stand out. I thought it was a lot of fun to watch. I thought the campiness of it and the scary parts worked out. And it's just like a failed rescue operation. Like just like everything just goes bad. I enjoyed it a lot. I probably missed it.
Yeah, I'm kind of thinking the same thing as you, Paul. I really did enjoy the movie just because I enjoyed having like this sense of hopelessness for the character, just because he was kind of stupid, but at the same time he did have little strokes of genius, which, I mean, that's kind of what you want in these type of movies. So I felt like everything added up, the special effects and everything, the little bit of CGI they had that really just, it wasn't good, obviously, 2001, but those little things that kind of add up, I really felt like giving it more of a higher, putting it higher on a pedestal more than from the Beyond for me.
Well, I guess on the shot scale, I'm going to say this one, I would probably need about 6 shots to get to this one again.
I can't remember what I gave it when we actually reviewed it, but I would say it's a 4 or a 5 out of. more often out of not a 4 out of 10 on the shot scale.
Give it 2 out on the shot scale, and 8 out of 10 realistic. I genuinely enjoyed it. It's like kind of just a fun time movie. Just like popping every stuff.
Yeah, I would definitely give it a 2 out of 10 on the shot scale, just because I really enjoyed like I said, the sense of hopelessness, plus the little twist ending just pushed it over the edge for me.
I mean, if I want to watch a Lovecraft movie, I'm gonna watch From Beyond or Reanimator or Bride of Reanimator. Like that's just me.
So this one actually had more boobs than From Beyond.
Did it have more, or just a longer scene of it?
It had more.
Doesn't have David Gale in it.
Well, I'll tell you what it did have in place of that. It had a tentacly bitch.
Oh yeah.
I guess those out there with the mermaid and the octopus fetishes would appreciate that, you know. like this movie has. It has a hot version of Ursula from The Little Mermaid. Oh yeah, that really makes me want to watch it.
I guess that's all I had for this movie. What about you guys? Ready to wrap it up?
Yeah, sounds about right. I think we've said just about everything we need to say about Dagon and From Beyond.
All right.
Yeah, I would definitely put From Beyond as the superior movie to Dagon. I think it captures the Lovecraftianness more so than Dagon does. I honestly think Dagon was just kind of a hey, we haven't made a Lovecraft movie in a while and we need a paycheck, so let's do something.
I think they captured 2 different sides of Lovecraft really well, so I think there were two good movies to compare side by side. One of them was the going too far at science, the fear of the unknown, and the other one was of creatures beyond our comprehension. So I thought that they were both Lovecraftian in their own way, and I thought it was definitely a good choice to pick those two.
Yeah, I kind of felt the same way as Paul, just because you can't really put the two on a comparison scale, just because one is a combination of 2 stories. But I mean, if you were to look at it as its own thing without even knowing that it was inspired by the works of H.P. Lovecraft, I think you would think, wow, that's a really good movie. But knowing that it was a combination of 2 stories and that it was inspired by H.P. Lovecraft, it does kind of have that lackluster kind of feeling.
Corey and Paul, go ahead and let people know how they can listen to your show and and just how they can reach out to you if they like to.
So first off, you can check us out at bmoviebros.com. If you want to listen to what we have to say, like on any other kind of daily basis, you can follow us at bmoviebros. That's all one word on Twitter, or Paul personally at bmoviepaul. Our shows are available on our website as well as on SoundCloud and iTunes. Most, if not all of them, are also up on YouTube.
Yeah, pretty much.
We do reviews, interviews, and various other specials dealing with B movies and the independent film industry.
Yeah, random chats on media topics and things like that. We interview a lot of indie filmmakers, whether they've made 100 films or 1 film. Doesn't matter to us. We just like talking to filmmakers in general.
Yeah, I mean, I've been going through and listening to you guys' show, and it's definitely one to check out. I've been enjoying the B-movie chats and, all that stuff, and just the different ideas that you guys put out there and the discussions that it generates. It's really cool. So I would say everybody check it out. Dakota, let everybody know how they can get a hold of you if they'd like to.
Yeah, guys, if you guys want to get a hold of me, you can always reach out to me on my my horror Mino. That is Rainstorm01, RAIYN Storm01, all one word. Or you could email me at daxshadowbane@gmail.com. Let me know what you guys think. And if you guys actually would, we actually did announce our Patreon on our last episode. You guys want to look for that on Patreon? You can actually find that on there, and I think I have it under Black Cat Shadow Podcast. Or you can actually go on to our Facebook and actually find the link there, I believe. Do we have it posted there right now, Andy?
Probably not. I'll have to add it on there.
Okay. Well, yeah, guys, if reach out on there and actually support us, because we're going to bring some really awesome content with our Black Cats tracks, which is my personal little thing on there. I think you guys, since you guys are patrons of ours now, you guys get to listen to my first episode, and I'm actually going to be recording audio probably tonight to send over to Andy for that episode.
Yeah, that's really awesome, guys. We really appreciate you guys being our first patrons, and it's just awesome. So thanks.
Well, thanks for having us on and everything. We definitely enjoyed this.
Yeah, it was a blast having you guys on here. We look forward to doing it again soon, and maybe talking about some true B movies this next time.
Sounds good. We're always up for a chat on that.
All right. And I guess I should say our social media stuff. If you guys want to send us an email, you can send it to blackcatpodcast@gmail.com. If you'd like to just, ask us a question or make a comment, whatever, you can find us on Twitter @blackcatpodcast, and we're also on Facebook and Horror Amino. I do post like some horror news stuff or comments or whatever, just whatever I feel like. So go on there, check that stuff out, and So thanks, guys, for tuning in. Our next episode, we'll probably be back on a road trip of horror. So remember, guys, to take a closer look at the world around you, and you may just find that it is stranger and more mysterious than you thought, especially in the Black Cat Shadow.